Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Very good evening to you there back at home. My name is Faisal Kassim and welcome to Live Real Talk. Tonight, you guys are witnesses of how much of a freestyle I have been on this show since we started the new season. But again, because of the sensitivity of this topic tonight, you can see all these papers that I have to equip myself with. This is a topic that has been widely spoken about. Misinformation, disinformation, politicization has been order of the day. Some even causing fears and panics into some quarters. We are here tonight to kind of separate the wheat from the chaff, to hear from the voices of authority, those who have been affected, with you, the viewer, in mind. How is this finance bill likely to affect you, your business, your lifestyle, your monthly expenditure, to mention but a few? Are you going to have to downgrade your life? If you're living in Kilimani, you're going to move to maybe Jamhuri or somewhere else. If you're living in Lavington, maybe you move somewhere like Kilelesho or Kilimani or somewhere else. This is what we're here to discuss tonight. If passed this finance bill, how is it going to affect your life with the many proposals that have been put in the bill? Tonight, joining me, ladies and gentlemen, I have Ms. Arwinder Sandhu from Westminister tax consultant, Karibu Sana.
Thank you.
A senior consultant there, and Ruth Mwanzia, who is the founder and director of Koola. Ladies, I'm the only gentleman on this set tonight. I'm feeling like, oh my God, should I get a banner and start walking on the street and demand for more people to join me here tonight? You're looking lovely, ladies, tonight.
Thank you.
Karibuni Sana. Thank you so much for making time for us this evening. Right? Let's start with you, Ruth, just to get a feeling. How do you feel after reading this finance bill? How exactly do you feel about it? Where do you stand with it?
So for me, my stand is as an entrepreneur, and also trying to look at it from a very realistic side. I see that there are pros and there are also cons to the finance bill. For me personally, it will affect my business, because I'm also in the manufacturing side of it. Even if the government now is encouraging local manufacturing by lowering the levies, there are some of the factors that are going to affect me, like like the digital tax, like the turnover tax, like even the VAT that is being charged on fuel prices, because of distributing my products every day, because I usually use just my van to distribute my products to my customers, and sometimes my customer can't come to my factory and pick their goods. So personally, it's affecting me, but I've also seen it as a way of actually creating so many opportunities for the youth to enter into the digital space, and also creating employment, especially after the housing levy, because now there'll be more industries like more hardware shops, more cement shops and all that. So I see they are both positive and both negative.
Interesting.
Yes, yes.
Arwinder, you've done a whole analysis of a 48-page analysis that is currently spreading. You've done workshops or presentations on this finance bill, 148 pages finance bill of Kenya Kwanza's first administration budget. What's your general feeling about the whole bill?
Well, I mean, being the first finance bill of the Kenya Kwanza administration, we see, I mean, we did expect a lot of radical measures, considering the heavy debt loan and finance situation of the country. The only way to go, if we're saying we're not borrowing more, like our president says, is of course more tax measures, and that's the only other solution to raise revenue in the country. So of course the finance bill has been an interesting one to analyze, with a lot covering the different statutes, the Income Tax Act, the VAT Act, Tax Appeals Tribunal Act, the Tax Procedures Act, you name it, and there's a measure which is, you can say, extreme from what we're used to. So a lot of measures introduced in there, and it's critical for the common mwananchi, businessman, everyone out there. There's a lot of debate about the housing levy, and all the focus seems to be on that. However, we need to appreciate that there's so much more to the bill than just the housing levy, and we need to understand and appreciate the impact that will have on our lives, like you said, on our daily lives and our businesses alike.
Interesting. Thank you so much. And I just want to pick it up from where you stopped at, businesses alike, right? When this administration was campaigning to get into power, they were saying that they're coming in for the third liberation, third and final liberation, which is the economic liberation. And I mean, countries around the world has always gone up, or rather improved their economic standards through industrialization, investments, both local and foreign. So let's start with that. For as far as this finance bill is concerned, Arwinder, I'm going to start with you. How does this affect the business environment for as far as investments is concerned, both local and foreign?
You see, the tax measures introduced in the finance bill are very critical. They're what define, are you going to attract investment in the country? When we're talking about investment, it's just not local, but foreign direct investment. Even local investments can be, you know, a critical factor in the economy. And as far as that is concerned, let me give you an example. Let's look at, for instance, Tatu City today, right? Tatu City is all the way in Kiambu County. It has shaped the landscape of Kiambu County. You have international schools sitting in Tatu City. You have coffee farmers who knew nothing but coffee farming, who are now actually contractors. They're turned into engineers of some sort. There is so much opportunity that has been created there. And you find there was tax measures or tax incentives that were introduced previously that encouraged all these, you know, reforms in the economy. Tatu City right now decongests Nairobi. We're heavily congested in Nairobi. We're having all that infrastructure developed in Tatu City. Why? Because we introduced incentives like the investment deduction. So back in 2009, we had an investment deduction allowance that was introduced at the rate of 150%, where you spent more than 200 million outside the satellite towns in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu. And you find that there were so many investors who took advantage of that, and for, like I just said, Tatu City moved out. But come 2020, the Tax Laws Amendment Act introduced a new second schedule. So the second schedule of the Income Tax Act was repealed. That deals with the capital allowances. And in the process, all these incentives were deleted. So we were left with a 50% investment deduction in the first year and a balance of 25% each in the consecutive 2 years. Not highly motivating. Why would I leave Nairobi and go develop, you know, a rural area? And I mean, there's no incentive for me, right? So again, the Finance Act of 2021 reintroduced this incentive at a rate of 100%, where you were investing in a special economic zone or you were investing more than 2 billion, again outside the rural cities of Nairobi, Mombasa. The interesting part is Finance Bill 2022 comes up and we have this introduction of this policy that, you know what, unless you're based in these locations, because that is not the nature of your business. For instance, let's say I'm in the cement industry, and I go where I'm mining my raw material from. If my factory is based there, then the law wants to say you don't qualify for that investment deduction, right? Further, they want to limit it just to hotel buildings and the machinery and buildings that are utilized in manufacture. So they were limiting who could take advantage. But if you look at the backward and forward linkages that these opportunities create, right, you need such incentives. You have to look at the bigger picture of how you're not just giving a tax incentive, fine, you might be losing on revenue in the short term, but look at the ripple effect it creates in the economy, right? There's a school there. There's a mama mboga who's probably supplying some vegetables to that school, right? There are huge construction companies that are actually going to do the construction right there. So there's an entire multiplier effect that we need to take cognizance of. And it's interesting because if you look at the Hansard reports, when the same provision was under debate last year, our members of parliament agreed to that. The committee was like, yes, we have a point, and those provisions were reinstated. But guess what? We're at Finance Bill 2023, and the same amendments are being introduced again. Right? So it also brings a matter of national tax policy, which we haven't had so far. And kudos to the new administration, because at least they've tabled that in Parliament right now for consideration. But you find, as an investor, and you know, we're talking about amounts of 2 billion plus. I cannot put a factory or a manufacturing plant overnight. By the time we're talking 2 billion, it will take some time. So you find that we need certainty and predictability in our tax laws. You can't introduce a tax law today and tomorrow you want to delete it within 6 months. You find that some of these reforms take effect maybe in January. So you have a law that comes into play in January, and by April we're discussing deletion. Yeah. So
even without giving it time to develop and all that, right?
Exactly.
So all these investments and the concessions and the discounts that you're talking about, then what is the ripple effect ultimately to the Mwananchi back then in terms of employment? I mean, one of the things that one of the examples you've given is the Tatu City, which has curbed the rural-urban migration, correct? So it has created employment within Kiambu County and decongested the cities around it, particularly Nairobi to be precise, right?
Yes.
So the economy, it has spurred economy to some extent in Kiambu.
yes,
Correct?
definitely, yes. And even look at the skilled labor, right? Right now, these are people who were just in coffee farms, like I said. But right now, they're doing a lot more than that. So we're enhancing the technological capabilities of our people. We're creating more opportunities for them. So there's certain measures that if we've introduced them, we need to look at the bigger picture. In the long run, we're getting PAYE from all these people, corporation tax.
Yeah.
You're increasing the spending power of these ex-coffee farmers. That's your VAT right there, right? So revenue
Increasing
will
the tax
come.
base.
You're increasing the tax base. The revenue will eventually flow in. It's just to have that perspective and a much bigger outlook on the measures that we introduce.
Which not everybody has, right? Thank you so much. Ruth Mwanzia, as an investor, I'm sure you've read through the finance bill and you have seen some of the issues. It has caused some sort of fear or panic, right?
Yes.
To some extent, right?
Yes.
So as an investor, you said that this bill has both pros and cons. From your own analysis,
Yes, yes.
where do you think you're more inclined? Is it more on the positives or the negatives based on your company and the taxes that you may have or your business may have to incur if this finance bill is enacted into law and all these changes are ratified?
Okay, to be honest, like yes, as I said, that the pros and also the cons, but also to be a very realistic business owner who is on the ground serving the local Mwananchi each and every day, because I do various businesses. One of them is I am in the water manufacturing, and I'm also in the health sector where I sell healthy products to my clients and to my customers, and also for a business that was also affected during the time of COVID and all that. And one of the things that really had hit us as a business was just the high cost of living, inflation, and also a lot of taxation, especially on my business, because I usually also do VAT. Like my business is came with that surcharge for VAT and everything, and also they introduced the excise duty that time. So for me, coming out of that era of just recovering from just the
effects of COVID.
The effects of COVID, and I was and actually some of my customers also moved up country. So yes, there are those negative consequences, and then again, like now just coming to know, the increasing like the fuel from 8% all the way to 16%, and I'm doing distribution. That means the cost of fuel will actually go up, and then also at the end of the day, it hurts the everyday customer, because for us entrepreneurs, we'll have to increase the cost of our goods in order for us to make profits and everything. And also when the tax base now opens up from the turnover tax from actually it used to be 1%, from 3% to 1%. That means even businesses with turnovers of 1 million shillings are now going to get into the tax base and all that. And that's going to be like artful, especially maybe the mama mbogas and all that. And sometimes they're even making like, let's say, 500 shillings a day. And now they're really going to be taxed at the end of the day. Can they like really afford to sustain that? And will they be able to have even profit to create employment for the rest of the people? So those are some of the maybe the negative consequences that we are feeling as the business people, but also seeing an opportunity also like where there'll be also a lot of also job creation.
Before we get to the pros of it and the job creation, so from what I'm understanding is that your cost of production is likely to go up more than the revenue you're likely to collect.
Yes.
So if the cost of production goes up, that means loss of jobs.
Yes, loss of jobs.
So you're going to fire. You're going to have to fire some people.
Yes, yeah, which yes, because you know, like for you to make, you know, for you to make profit, you also have to really study your business and really know, you know, where can I cut the cost and everything, and also, but also, you know, like.
So before we get to that, so from all your businesses right now, how many employees how many staff do you have?
Okay, so
inclusive of the drivers, the tiny boys, the offloaders. How many roughly? Give a range.
Around seven number of staff, and this because also we have automated some of the processes.
So out of the 7, how many are likely to lose their jobs? Full-time jobs, and then to maybe turn into casual laborers?
Maybe around like 3 of them. Actually.
3 of them?
Yes.
So 3 people are going to lose jobs if this finance bill is put into law?
Yes. Yeah, because you see, for business, it's also about reducing, you know, reducing the costs.
Expenses.
And reducing the expenses. And all that. But yes, so yes, that's going to happen because the VAT will actually have to have gone higher and all that. So yes, there's that negative consequence, especially for the micro and the mini business, because again, at the end of the day, you just decide, you know, I'm not going to work with staff. I would rather be everything in my business so that I can actually be able to be compliant with the government and be able to actually just be able to file my taxes on time. So yeah, that's a consequence that is likely to be there.
This is just one business. We are talking about Arvi, and 3 people are likely to lose their jobs if this finance bill is enacted into law. So very briefly, because we're almost due for our fast break, maybe Arwinder, you just try to take this opportunity and explain briefly the difference between zero-rated and tax-exemption. What's the difference? Because people have seen some products that have been moved from zero-rated class to the exempted class, and guys are like, wow, so this is a good thing, right? So before we know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, maybe you explain to us what's the difference between zero-rated and tax exemption.
Perfect. So, as we all know, VAT is a consumption tax.
Yeah.
And of course, the whole, you know, there's a whole debate about zero rate and exempt. Of course, if you look at when you're charging the tax, when you're doing the sales, the rate is common, the 0. But the catch is in the input VAT on the purchase side. So what happens is, like now, Ruth would want to sell her water bottle, right? So when she's selling the water bottle, when it's zero rate or exempt, the tax rate will be standard, the 0. However, the differentiating factor is she has incurred various costs to generate that water bottle, right? Yeah. So there's the bottle itself, there's the plastic packaging, there's the caps, the labels, there's a lot more raw material that has gone in. So you find when a product is zero rated, whatever input VAT you've incurred on your purchases to come up with the product or to manufacture the product, or to even supply the service, that VAT is an allowable deduction. You can offset it against your liabilities, right? Your VAT liabilities. However, when it becomes exempt, that VAT is blocked, the VAT on your purchases, right? So what happens, that additional VAT, you can't pass it on to the consumer. You have to consume it on your side.
And who's going to bear the burden now?
Which in most cases, I as a supplier, Ruth as a supplier, will not bear. So we pass it on to the consumer, okay? So that's what happens. You find that there's an additional cost because who bears the burden of the input VAT that has been incurred, right? The consumer. So the way the VAT Act is currently crafted is unless you have less than 10% of your total sales, of your total taxable sales are exempt, you find that if it's less than 10%, then it's okay, you don't need to apportion. However, if you have more than 10% of your total sales are exempt sales, then you have to apportion, and whatever relates to exempt will not be allowed.
If I get you correctly, so a zero-rated product at the end of the day, the cost of production is somehow...
The VAT relating to that can be recovered.
Which contributes to the grand scheme, in the grand scheme of things, contribute to the general expenses of production.
Exactly,
in a way.
Yes.
So we can say that a zero-rated product is cheaper than a tax-exempt product.
Exactly. because for the exempt, the supplier has to either bear the tax, the input VAT incurred in relation to the purchases, or pass it on to the consumer, which the supplier is in business. So of course, being a consumption tax, will automatically go to the consumer.
Thank you so much, Arwinder, Sandhu, for that. We don't feed you here 100%. So you're going to have to go through the 148-page bill to understand what are some of those products that have been moved from zero-rated class to tax-exempted class for you to understand. But again, we're going to come back after the break. And some of the issues we're going to look at is the VAT, withholding tax, excess duty, tax tribunals, among many other issues. Boss, we are literally inside that class. Get your writing pad, get your pen. You need to take notes. Promise you, you need to. Don't say I didn't warn you. My name is Faisal Kassim. Keep it live. We're going to be back in a minute.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation. Verse of the day.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
وعباد الرحمن الذين يمشون على الأرض هونا وإذا خاطبهم الجاهلون قالوا سلاما والذين يبيتون لربهم سجدا وقياما والذين يقولون ربنا اصرف عنا عذاب جهنم إن عذابها كان غراما إنها ساءت مستقرا ومقاما.
News is about facts, and here on the Muslim Insight, we go beyond the headlines.
The Qadis, apart from being judicial officials, they are also critical members of our society.
We look at all the angles of the story as we bring stories that matter to you.
I am totally convinced generations to come will have the office of the Chief Qadi.
Join us on the Muslim Insights as we bring you the weekly news recap.
Enzi za wakati wa kumusema ati alisema akasisitiza akihutubia wanahabari, enzi hizo hazipo tena.
Every Friday from 8 a.m. only on Horizon TV.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون.
Enyi mlioamini, munapoitwa kuhudhuria swala ya Ijumaa, fanyeni haraka kuikimbilia, muache biashara zenu, hilo ni bora ikiwa mwelewa.
Isikilizeni kwa umakinifu khutba ya Ijumaa
ili uzidi kujenga imani yako na kupata faida nyingi ya siku hii.
Coming to you every Friday from Jamia Mosque, Nairobi.
Live on Horizon TV.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much for keeping it live. Real talk. I mean, we had to pay our bills. Taxes, regulations are coming. Na itabidi tulipe tax, itabidi tulipe ushuru. Kulipa ushuru ni kujitegemea. That's what they say, right?
Yes.
Yeah, kulipa ushuru ni kujitegemea. So we must pay our bills, man. As you guys are paying your bills back at home, the month end, just from the month end, and then we are looking forward to the next month end to get our salary, so we must pay our bills. That's why we have to go on a break. We are going to continue from where we left it. Arwinder. We were talking about the difference, or rather the connection or the difference between zero rate and tax exempt, right? And you clearly, perfectly explained it. Just to understand then, how does it affect our lifestyle? Because that's our rallying call tonight. We're looking at how is it affecting the Mwananchi at the end of the day. LPG, right, is exempt. So what exactly does that mean?
So LPG is exempt, yes. So when you go to buy your gas cylinder from your closest petrol station, you find that you won't be paying any tax ideally. But the same gas cylinder, the cylinder itself, the handling charges for that cylinder, the storage, the transportation, all those are contributing factors to getting that cylinder to the petrol station where you're going to pick it up from. There's VAT on all of that. So what happens to that additional cost? Because it's exempt, it cannot be passed on through VAT, of course, but it can be passed on through the cost. So that is why, as much as the item is now exempt, you'll find that the price will still go higher because there are additional taxes that the input side has been incurred on, and hence will be passed on to the consumer.
So basically what we're going to say is that if this finance bill is enacted into law, then contrary to what the Kenya Kwanza administration, they've been saying about petroleum and gas and all this, it's going to be the opposite.
Unless the suppliers are kind enough to bear the cost. Yes, it's either the taxpayer or the supplier to bear the cost.
According to Azimio Prasa earlier on today, then they're saying that this VAT on fuel increasing from 8% to 16% is likely to increase the price of fuel by 9 shillings per litre on diesel and 10 shillings per litre on petrol. And of course, the ripple effect of that into the economy. Maybe you can just, as you're putting in your comments on that, you can just drop in the miscellaneous tax and how exactly it comes into play in all this.
So, I mean, just like Ruth said, you see this transportation of items, right? If you look at it, and in fact, if I can just go a step back, let's look at the common Mwananchi. You're telling him his fuel price is going to go up. The matatu is not going to keep the prices to where it is. Furthermore, if you even look at another provision in the finance bill, touching on advanced taxes, going up. So where we're currently paying 60 per person or 2,400 in a year, whichever is higher, they want to increase the 60% from the 60 shillings from 60 to 100, and the 2,400 to 5,000 shillings. Right? So already the advanced tax is going higher, the petroleum is going higher. How is this person going to get home? So you are considering increasing the 8%, fair enough. But at the same time, you can look at it from the perspective of, like you correctly mentioned, the Miscellaneous Fees and Levies Act. They're proposing further amendments to the import declaration fee and the railway development levy. The input declaration fee currently stands at 3.5% and RDL stands at 2%. So they want to reduce this. There's a proposal in the finance bill to reduce from 3.5 to 2, and again 2.5, bring it lower again to 2. So if it's, as far as petroleum is concerned, we know this is a commodity used across board. There's no one industry that is not utilizing, the commodity. So why can't we consider then, when we're already talking of reducing, why can't we scrape it off as far as petroleum products are concerned? It's a commodity that's imported. So at point of importation, why can't we just get rid of those 2 levies? So at least even if we have the 8%, the net effect is a 2.5, which at least is bearable by the common Mwananchi.
Interesting. Over and above the VAT now, just looking at how it's going to affect the product at the end of the day, Ruth, before I come to you, let me stick to Arwinder for a minute. Over and above the VAT, from 8% to 16%, the miscellaneous and the advanced tax. Particularly my concern is I'm looking at the trucks, advanced tax, that's going up from 20,000 to 60,000, right? So this trucks are used to transport just the way Ruth is using vehicles to transport her products, right? So ultimately it is the main source of transport of moving products from one end to another. So even before factoring in the VAT or the taxes incurred in production of those products, the transport alone, we are likely to see an increase of some of these products because of the general production and the logistical cost. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's definitely correct. And if you look at it, I mean, I'd like to go back 2 years, the Finance Act 2021. Transport sector is such a critical sector to our economy, right? If we look at how we service the neighboring countries, how we are sort of the hub for Africa, we're a preferred destination amongst all countries. When we look at Africa, we're the hub for Africa, right? And when we go back 2 years ago, there's this whole contention. I'm sure we're all aware. There's been much debate about the status, the VAT status of services, right?
Yeah.
It was initially export of services were zero rated, and rightfully so. Currently, if you look at the Act, again, even though goods are zero rated, but the service element is not. So it was initially exempted, which of course added an extra cost to the suppliers. And at that point, back in 2021, the transport sector was actually was excluded from that exemption so that the status remained. Why? Because it's such a critical sector to our economy, right? So whether we're transporting, you find a lot of entities will be manufacturing locally within Kenya, and then the transportation to all these neighboring countries, we're exporting. So this sector is very critical, and whatever amendments we make, I mean, all sectors are important, but you find that this is the link for the manufacturers, for the service providers, everyone to the outside world. And even locally, we have so much going on, and that's why, I mean, we were talking about rural-urban migration, but how do we then get the products back into Nairobi, right? So if we keep increasing those costs, where are we heading to?
So if I get you correctly, then definitely the cost of products, unga, oil, amongst many other things, including services, is going to go up, which ultimately translates to the cost of living going up. Is that correct?
Yes, definitely.
If this bill is enacted.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Well, I told you guys you need to get your pen and paper. A lot of learning right here tonight. Again, we're not over yet. Ruth, you're so big on digital media. You've had a number of people coming in and endorsing your products, doing videos and a number of things basically on social media, right? And there are proposals rather that's going to affect the digital field, right? Yeah. They have introduced a withholding tax, right, on the digital space that content creators now will have to pay, either the content creators or the company, brand ambassadors, to mention but a few. Yeah. How is this then likely to affect your business in respect to the influences that you have been contracting to come on board and endorse your products?
Yes, thank you for that question. It's very relevant, and actually also to just the businesses that actually just depend on the influencers to actually grow our brand, get our voice known out there, get them to talk about what we do, because they already have a very huge audience. Like if you work with influencers, at least your product will get seen by maybe 1 million people, or even 78,000 people, depending on the size of the audience that they have. So this is actually going to adversely affect us, because if the digital influencers are being taxed, the 15%, that means the cost that they usually charge us, actually it's going to go up. And also, as you know, sometimes as a business you're really sacrificing, because this is your investment, and you want your investment to really grow. So that means now if it's like a micro business that is not even making so much profit at the end of the day, and they're really even going deep into their pockets and spending some certain amount on that influencer, and that influencer tells you, no, I can't work with you anymore because, you know, I'm being taxed this much, and what you're paying me is actually below. So if we are not going to be able to afford these digital influencers to work with, and so that means there'll be some kind of slow growth to our businesses and everything. So for me, I would actually advocate or even urge the government to reconsider this, and also to see, you know, this is an opportunity where a lot of youths can actually get employment through the tech world and all that, because, you know, sometimes you send your CV to different places and there are no jobs forthcoming. But, you know, with TikTok, with Instagram, even using your phone, you can actually generate content and grow your audience and even become a digital influencer. So this is a space where a lot of youths can come in and make money at the end of the day. So if the government can consider just revising the tax charges on the digital influencers, then it would really also help the small businesses, and it would also help the youths actually get employment.
Thank you so much, Ruth, for that. And we clearly saw in, especially from 2020, we saw a fast-paced growth, especially in this space, courtesy of COVID, right? So with these amendments and regulations, in your opinion, do you think is encouraging growth in this sector or discouraging it?
So for me, I would say it can also encourage growth when I look at the other perspective of it, because now you see these youths are going to consider, you know, I'm going to get highly paid for what I'm doing, because, you know, the taxation has gone high, so that means they'll have to charge highly for the service. So for the new content creators, it can be a positive thing, because they are coming into a place where they would actually get money, get something tangible for themselves, and the cost of living is already high. But also now on the negative side, some digital influencers would actually just like lose some of the brands they are working with, because these brands cannot be able to pay these digital influencers because the cost is too high. Yet we all need each other.
Exactly what I wanted to ask you. So, I mean, if you're already letting go of 3 people in your company, will you still consider contracting influencers for your business?
So sometimes also you consider what is the opportunity cost, and also when you've like really also studied your business, you're like, you know, sometimes you'd rather actually be a one-man person but have this digital influencer, because maybe the digital influencer is bringing for even more traffic than this salesperson that you are having, because you're sending this salesperson every day to go and sell your good, but once the digital influencer just tags your product, then you see the ripple effect. So you have to really know what is really working on your business, and these days everything is going the digital way and getting automated. So it's something that you also have to really think about.
Thanks so much. Arwinder, in your analysis about the digital regulations or the digital tax, and I quote, you say, the above amendments therefore come as no surprise, as legislators seek to be more specific with transactions that will be subject to the tax. So basically this wasn't a surprise for you.
I think we say that because digital service tax is not actually just a national phenomenon. It's a global phenomenon. If you look at the basis of charging to tax in every country, is all income accrued or derived from a particular country should be charged to tax there, right? So you find that we have so much going on. We have Netflix, we have all these online platforms. They're providing services across the globe. However, you're not paying tax from where you're earning it, right? So that is the entire concept of digital service tax. Locally in Kenya, digital service tax was introduced in the Finance Act of 2019. And you find since then, it's something that all countries across the globe are trying to to sort of formalize on how to do the taxation policies around the same.
And maximize on the fast-paced growing
Exactly.
industry.
Yeah, because e-commerce is growing at a very steep level, and you find that organizations like the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, are very heavily involved with its member countries trying to figure out, okay, what is the right way to do it so there's no instances of double taxation. Like if you look at how the laws were introduced initially back in 2019, digital service tax was going to apply to literally everyone. But then every bill, subsequent bill after that, has been refining the regulations. Like now it's limited to non-residents. And I think, again, we're not providing enough regulations as a country to our people on how this new law works. I mean, kudos to KRA, they have been making significant efforts. I'm sure Ruth can attest to, every other day you have an email from KRA sensitization programs. But those are the things we need to do because, again, is it a form of withholding tax? Is it really an additional tax on the person, or is it an advanced tax that the content creator is actually paying? He would have anyway paid that tax eventually. It's just a timing, difference. So there are misconceptions around the tax. It's a totally new concept that we all need to learn. Of course, even the regulators are learning and trying to craft the laws. But even for us as the consumers of that tax, we need to appreciate better the dynamics around it and appreciate that it's something that is still being developed.
Okay. And with the introduction of the tax, I'm just going to ask you the same question I asked Ruth. Do you think it's encouraging or discouraging this growing industry?
You see, that's what I'm saying. It's the perception we have, right? Because if you look at the digital content monetization, the introduction of that provision in the finance bill, it's going to be a withholding tax at 15%. And that's what I'm saying. Withholding tax is not an additional tax per se. Withholding tax is just a form of an advanced tax that whoever is consuming your service will withhold from your payment and pay upfront, right? So it doesn't really become an additional liability, it just becomes sort of, it's like we're giving working capital to our government to fund the activities. However, again, you find that most of these, if we look at, of course, there's the well-established companies, but there's some people who are doing this just as a side hustle. I have not been declaring my taxes. You see, withholding tax is a perfect way to get hold of now whoever's been providing this service, because Ruth knows at the end of the day, if she does not withhold, the liability will be on her. She will pay the principal, the interest, and the penalty. So as soon as she does a declaration, which is another thing, you find that our tax system is getting so automated that doing business is not the same like it used to be.
I know.
Everything is now online, right? So she will put in a withholding tax, payment on her iTax. It will automatically hit your account. KRA knows you have 15% declared. Where's the other 15, right? So it's an entire chain of expanding the tax base. And I think as Kenyans, we have to acknowledge that if we've earned the revenue, we've got to pay the tax.
Wow, okay. I'm a victim of withholding tax, by the way. I'm a victim of withholding tax about some gigs that I did some times back, and then when I was filing my returns. So the KRA officials are like, I think something fishy here. Where is this? Where is this? Why are you not declaring?
Exactly.
Relax, don't talk about it. Relax, don't talk about it. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks so much for that reminder. By that, I need to visit my RM at the KRA. Interesting that KRA even now offers RM, relationship managers.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting, yeah, as you said. Guys, we've spoken about this finance bill and some of the impact. We've seen some of the negative impacts that are likely to happen in terms of reduced revenues, especially for businesses, potential high cost of living if the bill is enacted into law. But again, I'm 100% sure there must be some goodies in this bill, right? I'm going to start with you, Ruth. You said there are a number of advantages, the number of pros that we've seen in this bill. What are some of those pros, and how do you think it's going to affect your business? And by extension, how is it going to spur the economy around your business?
So yes, there's some of the pros and advantages. So one of them, for me, I would say, is actually the housing levy, just for me just studying that, because yes, it's going to be 3%, but also I see it in a way that it's actually going to create employment and a lot of opportunities as well, and also more industries are going to come up, and also, you know, like the basic needs of a person are food, shelter, and clothing. And if a person from the slums can get like proper shelter and affordable housing and stuff, and also see there'll be so there'll be a lot of construction industries that will come up, and that will mean that there'll be also a lot of job creation that is centered along that. And also the other thing that I see as a pro to this is on the manufacturing, when they're going to reduce the levy from 3.5 to around 2.5%. So that really encourages us, just the local manufacturing, and also for people to really get creative with their talents, you know, and produce things locally that are affordable, that are good, and all that. So I see that the manufacturing levy will also favor us as entrepreneurs. Then I would say maybe, and then also the other thing is that it will also help us get more compliance, because as you see now there'll be introduction of the e-teams, the machines and all that. So that will mean like it will help a lot of also businesses to actually be compliant. Yes, there'll be that cost effect before you get the machine. Is actually very expensive to install, but it also reduces a lot of burdens on the business person and all that. So yes, it will help us get more compliant, and what else do I see? Yes, so those are some of the advantages that I see, that there will be like creation of different industries. There'll be a creation of jobs, and also more people getting into the digital space. Yes, so I see those are some of the winnings. I see that for this finance bill, just a few of them.
Thank you so much. Arvi, please.
I think from where we sit, there are a lot of winners as well. I would say, you know, there are certain measures that have been introduced. For instance, the aviation industry. Our aviation industry had taken quite a hit in the past few years. You find it was cheaper to take your aircraft to, you know, cross the border to Tanzania for servicing and maintenance, because by the time you brought your parts into Kenya, you had an import declaration fee, a railway development levy, VAT on your parts. Of course, this was mostly politically incited previously, right? But so you see there's proposals to now exempt VAT, exempt some of those parts, and this will again bring back that business that we lost to, you know, neighboring countries. If you look in the health sector, there's proposals to exempt, you know, taxable goods that are being brought for direct and exclusive use for hospitals, specialized hospitals, for equipping those hospitals, you know, the equipment, the building materials, where the hospital capacity is more than 100 beds. Looking at what we've been through, you know, with COVID, it's a very positive move, because everywhere in the world there were not enough beds. So if we can encourage those kind of, you know, institutions to be grown, and again with that comes specialized doctors, we can tap into the domestic, you know, medical tourism. Why are we giving our foreign exchange to India, to the UK, to South Africa? So all these things play a, you know, like I said, a multiplier effect, and you'll find that we can all benefit as a country eventually. Again, of course, there's the export and investment levy, which is now again looking to encourage local manufacture, right? Of course, the way the current provision is crafted, it's focusing on a few specific items. It's not certain as to what the criteria for picking those items are, but these are some of the, you know, measures we need introduced to save and protect our local manufacturers and local industries. So these are all welcome moves that, you know, are pointing towards a positive direction.
Wow, thanks so much, Arvi. I have a lot of questions that I'm getting from our viewers back at home. One of them is asking, how does the finance bill proposal aim to stimulate job creation? Are there any provisions in the bill to support the growth of small medium-sized enterprises and startups? How will the funds collected from the housing levy be utilized to address the housing needs in Kenya? A lot of questions. I have like literally 15 questions right here. But again, we are running out of time. We're literally out of time. If anything, we're overriding by 6 minutes so far. Ladies, thank you so much for making time for us this evening. And thank you so much for helping us to understand from an entrepreneur's perspective. And thank you so much for explaining to us some of these tax laws and how exactly they're going to affect the businesses and our life at the end of the day. Thank you so much, ladies. Guys, the new finance bill is just 148 pages. 148 pages, nothing more than that, correct? And Arwinder's analysis is 48 pages, correct? Yes, that's all you need. That is all you need. Let it not be like the Constitution where you follow your political leaders. Say, he's already read, so I'm okay, I'm just going to wait for the analysis. Guys, you need to read it. Read the finance bill. If it's too complex, Arwinder has simplified it in a 48-page document. If you have my number, hit me up and I'm going to send it to you right away. You have my email, hit me up and I'm going to send it and share. I got it, I'm sharing it across. So if you have my number, hit me up and I'm going to share it with you, right? If you know where I am, follow me, come here, and I'm going to give you a physical copy, right? We need to read. If it passes into law, you need to know what you're up for or what you're up against. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Faisal Kassim, and thank you so much for keeping it live. We'll talk. See you next week, same place, same time. Assalamu alaikum.